generic Let's Debate logo?
Oh, I could have.
I assume you've got some sort of a template that you use to create whatever thumbnail that was temporarily
Okay.
getting thrown up there.
Why did that not connect? No, it should have connected. It's not connecting.
Yeah, it says live again.
Are we?
Yep.
So we're on.
Yes, we are.
Hey everyone,
Hello.
sorry about that. Due to technical issues with YouTube,
We're
we're
back.
back. Welcome back.
And it did have a regular Let's Debate logo on there, Elusive.
Okay, there we go.
We need to get the link put into the live chat.
Discord.
Sorry, this is going to show up in our stream when I do that.
Oh, I was just thinking about it. I was sitting in the stream a little bit ago, and I think it killed the stream then too, before you guys had started this up. That makes sense why.
that little invite guess is going to show up. Sorry about that, everyone. Did not mean to do that, but there's the StreamYard link again if anyone wants to join. Had to get creative. I wonder if this one will get shut down too. That was weird. Huh. Somebody
I
was
hope not.
concerned about us.
That was very sweet, whoever that was, but generally we are okay. We are just talking about the issues that need to be talked about.
Exactly, and a person's right if they are in a state that is inconsolable, unhealable, unrelievable, nothing but pain, agony,
Yes.
suffering. They should not force people to go through that. Wasn't there a book written that said they shoot horses, don't they? I mean, that's just the saying right there. And it would be far safer if a doctor was to help them.
Yes.
Hello, Hannah.
This is why I. Hi, Hannah.
Hannah, would you like to join?
Or we can just do. You don't have to turn your camera on. Yeah, we're pretty sure that that one word got us shut off.
Yep.
But we're back.
Yep. Yep.
Well, now we've had two things with YouTube. We got a copyright claim on a public domain song, which is really weird. I thought that was strange from YouTube.
Yeah. Why put songs publicly if you can't use them? That's super weird.
And now we used the wrong word in the title. We got to be more careful going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
learning.
YouTube's rules are so fickle. Like
Fickle.
it's just so strict.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
kind
I've
of
seen other.
it's more sensitive than well, Chat GPT is pretty sensitive. Twitch is kind of sensitive, I guess, on what you're doing. Even at Chat GPT is like, I can't write about that.
Well, I've seen
Yeah,
other channels have conversations that are basically the same topic.
Yeah.
But
Oh, video was removed by Uploader. Yeah. Say hi to Todd. There's Sweepy.
Hi, Todd.
But yeah,
I'm sorry, I can't see the YouTube live chat, so if anyone could please tell me if anyone says hello to me, I will say hello back. I'm not ignoring anyone.
Hannah says hello.
Hi. It's just I genuinely can't see the YouTube live.
Yeah, it
so
just
if
randomly. Well, Todd, on our dashboard it says removed, and we got a notice that said YouTube, somebody was worried about was concerned about your safety.
Oh, we do thank you, but we are completely okay. It's just that we're here today to discuss issues that need to be talked about that are relevant. I do think that people should be afforded the ability to end their lives if they are compos mentis enough to choose that decision for themselves. They should have the dignity to do so if they wish.
Well, Void just posted a message, and it said it initially said this video has been removed for violating YouTube's community guidelines, but then the message changed to removed by uploader. I think I'd much rather have it
Okay.
say removed by uploader, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I can live with that.
So,
Well,
anybody in the live chat like to join us?
welcome,
Hi,
Gabby.
Gabby.
Hi, Gabby.
Welcome, this one guy. Welcome, Void. And if any
Hey,
of you
Tog.
want to,
I told you to
if
say hi
any
to
of you,
Tog.
if you want to join us, just click the link and you guys can join our conversation.
We can fit two
Yes,
more.
come
We
join
we
us.
only have 6 at this moment, Tog, but we're working on the upgrade.
Well, I can always step out or yeah. So anyway,
I mean,
back to the topic.
if somebody is suffering that much, if somebody is suffering that greatly, they're going to try to find any way that they can, if they're still mobile, I guess. If
Yeah,
they and what if they fail badly and it makes everything worse? Because that could happen
yeah.
too. If it's medically assisted,
This is why.
if it's
Yeah,
medically assisted, then you know that they're not going to go out painfully. They're just going to fall asleep and say goodnight, right? And it, there's there's far less chance that it'll fail. So I would much rather have it under controlled circumstances and that way they could have their family present. You know, they can make it a decision as the family. They go, Mom, we don't want to see you suffering like this.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, and there's a lot of stories about medical professionals doing it uh, on the down low, um, and just keeping it quiet. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but
no,
that's a decision that should be, you know, if there are other people
yeah,
concerned, you should at least discuss it with them.
yeah,
I mean, if you're all alone in this world, hey,
yeah. I think people should be afforded the dignity to choose what happens to them, and they shouldn't be made to suffer unnecessarily. But I do think, they should have a psychiatrist present to see if this is actually what they want. I think it's a very serious issue that should be treated seriously.
yeah, like if they're mentally sound to make that decision.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I was thinking about some other stuff too, but it's a little bit not quite there on the same topic, but um, I don't know if you guys have heard it. Maybe Sweet Pea has. Um, certain certain religious groups will deny access into the patient's room uh, unless they will put on like a burqa or something. Like the family will say, no, you can't come in here. and or unless you've, you know, dressed accordingly. And I just wonder if that's something that, I don't know, if that's something that should be enforced.
Um,
I don't know if you've ever come across that.
Not personally.
no, not personally.
Or
We
or specific family members will say, well, we don't want any female nurses, that no female nurses can be in the room, stuff like that.
I think I've heard of no female doctors. I don't know if I've heard of no female nurses.
Well, I know somebody who that happened to. They wanted her to put on, you know, some sort of covering, like a hair, face covering. I don't know. It's just one of those things that I mean, they have so many patients already. It seems a little bit extreme, you know?
Hmm.
But
yeah.
at end of life stuff, like if it's a hospice situation and there's like an end of life kind of thing going on, I I can totally see that it's, you know, the right thing to do to respect their wishes, um, you know, in their final days, if they
Yeah.
want certain things to happen. And
Yeah.
probably
They
the
should be
only
afforded that dignity.
this will get elusive off on a tangent. That's probably the only
Oh,
philosopher I've ever read anything by is John Stuart Mill. And he said
oh.
he said that over himself, over his own mind and body, the individual is sovereign. So I do believe that we should be able to choose, what we do, how we live, and how we die if we want to.
yeah, that's a good question. It's like,
Yeah.
should laws get to dictate how we live or not live? I feel bad for those folks out there that are suffering from terminal illnesses or lifelong, very painful, debilitating
Yeah.
problems that, and it's like they don't have any control over how they live the rest of their life.
Yeah.
I know that Sweet Pea and my wife have worked in some of the same types of facilities too. And you can't tell me that those
Yep.
people's quality of life is, yeah, I mean, really?
Well, like nursing homes.
That's
Nursing
what we're
homes
talking
are just
about.
miserable. Yeah, anybody who's been to a nursing home, whether they were a patient or they visited a family member or loved one, they are just depressing. It's just, and none of the patients look happy. They all look so sad and miserable.
And then you get some people that, they figure, oh, well, they're really, not in that great a shape. They're really elderly and hard to take care of. We'll put them in the nursing home. And they only got a few years left, and they'll be there for like 20, 25 years
Mm-hmm.
because they just live for a long, long time.
Oh, and nursing homes will drain every cent that person has.
Yes, they do.
Some nursing homes can be like that, yeah. I've worked for a few like that, and I've worked for a few that are actually pretty decent places. I think the one thing that used to drive me insane is listening to the same few songs on repeat day in, day out.
Yeah.
There's no escaping that.
Yeah, the last job I had, it was the same thing. 50s, uh, 50s music 24/7.
Mm. If I never hear "Show Me the Way to Go Home" ever again, it would be too soon.
My wife worked at a unique nursing home. It was a Catholic one. It was just for the old nuns. And she said that it's even the same for the Catholic because somehow they have like $1 million life insurance policies on all these nuns in the nursing home. So they don't get the greatest care because, they will deny them certain, like this one, she tells a horror story about this one nun who was in her 90s and still had many of her own teeth. And she had one that was broken, and they wouldn't even let her take Advil or Tylenol for it. I'm like, really? And she's like, no, I wouldn't give it to her.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
Mother Teresa type situation.
Yeah.
I don't know how you guys feel about Mother Teresa, what she did.
I am not as familiar. So
Um, she was viewed as such a humanitarian. Um, but when people came to these places that she was, running, uh, there was really no care for any of these sick, injured people. It was really just here's a crappy mat on the floor and no basic things, no Tylenol, no nothing. And the message to them was that, your suffering is part of, I guess, something to do with your faith in God, that suffering is good. Um, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, check into it. There's some interesting stuff that I never knew about before.
The greater your suffering on earth, the greater your reward in heaven. That's how the recovering Catholic upstairs puts it.
Yeah, I mean, it was like she was more obsessed with people suffering. Um,
ouch.
Hmm. So you think that was just an algorithm, or do you think it was an actual person that had an issue with that?
I'd expect. I think it's probably the algorithm.
Okay, we'll be more careful with our language next time. But
well,
there really is no sense in making someone suffer when, well, I don't know. It's so hard. If somebody's in a coma, just in a coma, should we not try every possible means to wake them up first? Like everything. I mean,
I'd
you
say we
can't,
probably should. Yeah.
yeah, because you can't even ask them if they, wanted, if they still want to be here. They're unconscious. But if they've been, I mean, they've had cases where people have been in a coma for a very long time, just woke up.
hmm
Yeah, this is why I think it's important that they take case by case and not put everybody in one category. I think they need to treat, everyone as case by case, taking their circumstances. before any decisions are actually made.
Would have been awesome if more people would join to talk about this.
Yes,
Yeah.
We need some people that
yes,
don't
please join
support
us.
this. Please, anyone,
Yes, please join us. We don't bite.
drop a
Well, I
message in
did
the
not
Discord
anyway,
that if
but
you don't support a person's right to choose their own time and way of death, please come talk to us.
yes,
So I
we
guess
would love to hear your thoughts.
maybe we have the go into a little more. Where are we gonna draw the line at in terms of where is it gonna be okay for somebody to say, you know what, I don't think life's worth living anymore. Where do we want? Do we feel comfortable drawing that line? So I feel like a lot of people are going to, when they're rejecting this concept, they're not comfortable with people drawing that line in general, and especially the people who are going to end up drawing that line.
I think it depends on it. Well,
Would-
yeah, it kind of depends on the specific issue the person's going through and whether or not they've been evaluated. Uh, if they've had mental health help.
Well, could somebody who does have mental issues still qualify?
Well, I think if they do and they've been treated for it and they're like not suffering from depression or something anymore, but they still legitimately feel like, hey, this is the choice I want to make, then I feel that it's okay. But as long as there's not something causing them to feel that way because of a mental health situation.
Well, it's probably true, but it's possible it could be multiple things. You could have somebody who is incredibly depressed to the point where they're suicidal, and they could also have some sort of a crippling disease.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if they have their mental health situation addressed, maybe they're on medication and the depression's not there anymore, but they still want to end their life. That's I feel like if they've been evaluated and doctors have checked them out, that I feel like that should still, I mean, it should be their right.
I feel like something that can be kind of a hard line to draw, especially if we're talking about somebody who might be on medication, because they might have been on medication. They might have stopped their medication. People will do that all the time. They don't like how depression meds work out or side effects. So do you like put this person through like a psych hold or something, or?
I don't know. I guess I wouldn't suggest that. Um, yeah, it is a hard line to draw. But if they've gone through and seen doctors and psychologists, um, you know, I don't know. But it depends on the specific person's issues and situation.
Now, how many people voted for this? It was a bunch, right?
I don't know, like 15.
Yeah, where are they? We don't even have the 15. Where are
Mark my words.
they? Don't vote for the things you don't believe in.
Well,
Well, we're gonna run the next vote like you said, Elizabeth. We're gonna let them just vote as many times as they want, and whatever wins, wins. Vote
Oh,
for as many as you want.
yeah, we're here
I was
talking
hoping
about this
for
because you people wanted it.
That's
Well,
right.
yeah,
there's
we
that, but
Now,
wanted
I
a
think
fair
the big
vote.
thing we might want to try and set up is very least making sure we've got somebody who is actively agreed to like step on here, so we know we have some sort of intention.
Mm.
Yeah.
well, this is just supposed to be open, though. I I mean, and if anybody does show up and wants to come in, they can. If uh, nobody,
Anybody else in the live two comments? I
we'll
can't see
work
them.
on it. I know
No,
haven't had
Okay.
one in a minute.
I want to make sure I missed anybody to say hello to. I
I think the
appreciate
people
you
that
guys
were,
looking.
I think the people that were here left.
Yeah, I think
Aw.
that take
Says we
kind
got
of
6, and that would
mix
be
things up.
myself and you two. So that's half of it.
Oh, I got 7.
So so I know we had the death, the dying, and then the other part of the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What
That
about
might
the
have
death
turned.
part? Are you guys, what do you guys feel about, like, are you afraid of death? Do you have, I mean, do you feel like there's something that happens when you die? What do you think?
Um, I'm I'm a little scared of dying. I actually had my grandmother. My grandmother actually died in my arms. When she passed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I did have to go on depression medication. I did have a breakdown because of it. I think I was on the medication for about 2 years, and I decided to take myself off because I didn't like living in a cloud of feeling nothing, you know. But yeah, I do think that it's hard.
Yeah.
um,
Well, if you ask me, I legitimately have no idea, but I am hopeful. You know that. Well, I know at least part of me will continue. My atoms are permanent in the universe, so at
yeah.
least part of me will still be here somewhere. Oh, Void has joined. It has joined.
Hi, Void.
Welcome,
Hello.
Void.
Welcome.
Welcome.
So I will say that I am not as afraid of dying as I am of becoming feeble. Becoming
I feel the
feeble
same way.
and not being able to care for myself scares the snot out of me.
Yeah.
I don't think I could handle that.
Looks
Mm,
like we are in a loop.
In a loop.
Yeah, a bit of a loop of everyone agreeing with each other.
Yeah, we are.
I
We
just had
Ah!
a stream on the second tab. Sorry, it was weird.
yeah, but we don't have anybody that opposes us yet. We need some opposition.
Uh, well, personally, I don't have a strong stance on anything here. Uh, I just think that the way we discuss it is a bit wrong. This is like one of those subtle topics where we need to use like social science surveys and all that. So it feels like in specific culture, in specific context, we do need to gather statistics on made decisions in the end. So the problem with the suicide is that it's not reversible, and thus we cannot understand was it a good solution or not. But if we always reject, we in the end can ask people, was it a good solution or not? And in the end, we can accumulate some kind of statistics when we should have accepted it and where we should not have. I guess this kind of stuff should be used for legislation for courts to like allow like um, so I understand that like the better way if a person may get assisted help of this kind only through a court, and court can approve this request only if statistics overwhelmingly supports that there is no chance to help this person. I mean, from social science point of view, from surveys collected by social scientists.
Anybody?
And until then, we should not allow that. So first, gather information. Only then, let's discuss when we will allow it.
So are you saying it should be it should be mandated, um, uh,
An
or
evaluation?
I'm saying that right now we are trying to answer a question, should it be allowed or not, and when it should be allowed. I'm saying that we should not do that. We should ask for gathering information from the point of social science so that they will accumulate enough statistics to decide when we have cases, which cases we have when we cannot help somebody for sure. And only after that we can discuss this topic. That's like my understanding.
I I don't I don't know if that's gonna be valuable in all cases. At least the ones some of those ones we've discussed so far. So, like in certain cases, we're gonna say we already have that medical knowledge that people with like MS, for example, they're not really gonna get any better. As far as we can tell, there could be medical advancements in the future, but I don't know if we'd want to base our policy here on maybe there's a treatment later, because I feel like we're just going to inevitably at that point we might as well just say, well, I guess nobody can do it because there's always a theoretical magic pill around the corner.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I expressed myself badly. My point was, if we reject everybody right now, then in few years after this rejection, we can ask them, was it a good solution or not that this was rejected? And we can see, we can categorize that. People with MS, like 99% times says it was a bad solution. We always, we need to allow this kind of I just don't want to like it's YouTube. I don't know how to express myself. Um, yeah, for cases where people were just having temporarily depression or whatnot, they if they were treated correctly, most likely they will say uh, it would have been a bad decision if this assisted help would have been allowed. So do we have this information? In which cases we have? Do we have these surveys?
So I don't even know if some of these surveys could even be done, especially over that time frame. Like if we're going to talk about somebody who's getting very aggressive cancer, they might only have 6 months, and their decision might be based off of, I'd like to go as I am now when I'm not yet in extreme amounts of pain, and I don't want to be put through all the costs and have all my family have to deal with all that. The outcome might be more or less certain. So I guess how do you think we would try to address whether or not that's a valid decision on their part?
I just think that all controversial problems in social life requires baby steps. You cannot just jump into some solution. Let's allow everybody who is suffering or something like that. You should do small things. For example, you said people who have left 6 months. You can ask in the end of these six months. So was it good or was it bad? And
Well, no, you can't actually, because they'll be dead.
no, you can ask before they are dead.
Maybe, hopefully. You could ask it maybe 5 months.
Well,
I don't know
usually
if you
cancer
have somebody waiting bedside, like, is this gonna be it?
usually cancer people go to the hospital often. So as part of their usual survey they do, like, do you feel any pain or whatnot? You can also ask this question, so you can track this. I mean, not for everybody, but for a big enough sample of people so that you can build good enough statistics. Um, I don't see a problem to gather these statistics.
So going forward, as medical technology changes, let's say over the next 20 years, we don't have any major medical advancements that significantly extends the life of somebody with a very specific type of cancer. Would we still need to kind of redo that? Um, what would trigger us having to rerun this, get a new survey, and say, you know what, it's been 20 years, nobody else can get these services anymore. You have to live out the 6 months, and your data will be provided to help make the decisions for other people.
Well, I guess I would leave it to social scientists. They could decide when something should be reevaluated, and they can reevaluate and publish their uh, research somewhere, and then it could be used to mm, amend some legislation or whatnot. Uh, yeah, that's it. Just let social scientists decide what is good, what is bad for this question. That's the whole point.
Um, I don't. I feel like it's odd to be able to have them say, you know what, you have to wait this long, especially when realistically people who get to the point, especially if we're talking about like I'm trying to avoid future pain, because we can look and we can very easily find the pain at which they say, you know what, it hurts now, it really hurts. This is what I was trying to avoid, and I don't think we'd have to wait 5 or 6 months for that. I feel like we'd be able to see that at 3 or 4 months, and I think we'd also run into issues where, are we going to be forcing these people to engage in certain medical decisions that would, how are we going to gauge that if they're already, their mind's made up that, you know what, I don't think life's worth it anymore. I feel like that's going to skew what medical decisions they're going to make for themselves in favor of maybe being less costly or maybe being worse medical decisions.
Sorry, I had to distract for a second. Well, um, uh, as it was said at some point, if a person doesn't want to live, usually they are able to handle that themselves. I agree there are immobile people who cannot do that. And maybe this is the only case where we don't need statistics to make a decision that this should be allowed, because like this is a basic freedom of a person to decide what happens with their life, and if they cannot do it themselves, then somebody should assist. But in all other cases, I don't see any strong reasons why wouldn't we wait for better statistics to make this process like uh, you know when you get married in Russia, you need to wait 1 month before this will be approved. So you do a request and then wait for 1 month, no matter what reasons do you have. For example, in my case, I needed to go out of the country in 1 week, but yet this is not a good enough reason. Um, uh, so um, when we do simplify mm, this process, as it was said by Sparrow, we can find people in a temporary condition. So there should be very compelling arguments of why we should not wait until survey. Do you have such compelling argument for a person who can assist themselves?
I'm
Sorry
sorry,
for
could you
my
rephrase
English.
that?
Yeah, sorry for my English. So I'm saying there are two cases: people who cannot do it themselves and people who can. For people who cannot do that, I agree. There should be allowed to do that through some external assistance. But people who can, um, uh, if they can do it themselves, then why should there be an assistance? Assistance only like simplifies it, makes it more convenient. You can find non-painful ways to complete
What?
your life without assistance.
But but but
I,
Um,
but there would be.
I'm
uh-huh.
not
I
as
mean,
sure.
Okay.
for the for in a similar thing. I mean, anybody's capable of, like, I don't know, fixing their car, but not everybody should go tackle it because you're not qualified to
Well,
make sure
I,
that
Uh,
I
it's
and,
agree
repaired
with
and
properly.
that, but
It's
it's, it's
it's you
against the law as well.
right, but if it was medically assisted, at least it would be in a controlled environment, and there'd be less chance of not or of messing it up and not completing it, or
you'd have
coming
significant
out
less side
worse.
effects if you, or chances, you have a better chance of success, significant less side effects if there something were to go wrong. You'd be in a kind of controlled environment to help resolve things that are going wrong. You would be uh, probably more efficient. I would assume, like in terms of like pain, managing pain. I don't know how well the average person would um, I don't know how well good of it the average person kind of would do there. I feel like there's a lot of things that let you control and um, control the environment with if it's some sort of a if you have some sort of assistance there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with the fact that it will be more controlled and the result will be you won't become some kind of cripple and
Maybe even worse off than you were.
Well, I mean, what do you all think about in the states are where it's legal, or any country where it's legal? Like, we have some states here in the United States where you have to be terminal and only have like 3 months left. I mean, to me, that doesn't seem really fair. It seems like it should be extended so that they aren't spending as many months suffering.
I agree.
So
I
go ahead.
think people should have a quality of life and they should choose when they decide to die so they've got that dignity still left. You know, I think it's up to each individual person. I think each case should be treated individually, taken into account of what they're going through.
We still kind of have to have, even if we're adding a little bit of subjectivity in terms of when do people um, decide that their life's not worth it. I think we have to have. I think we've all agreed even that we have to have some sort of a line at which society
Oh
says, you
yeah,
know what, no, that's not a good enough reason.
I think it should be up to the doctors when that line should be drawn, not
Well, like in
We
a lot of
lost him.
cases, yeah, we lost Void. Like in a lot of cases, I
Ah,
think it should be a decision between the doctor and the patient themselves to decide like what kind of quality versus quantity of life am I going to have
yeah,
going forward?
yeah.
Will there be a chance that, I won't be suffering every day or something? What am I looking at going forward?
Well, I don't know if that really draws the line, especially if we're going to try and have some sort of a legal decision here, in terms of, because the doctor is going to have to obey some sort of very broad set of rules for this is okay, this is not acceptable. These are people we need to turn down. These are people that need to be directed to psychiatric care.
So I think we're looking at like if it's a physical terminal illness that there's no medical treatment available, that we're all fine with that. But when it comes to mental illness, there's a little bit more indecision, right? Is that what I'm
Uh,
hearing?
yeah, but I mean, even with
Yeah.
physical ailments, like if I become a quadriplegic, um, I feel like there's going to be a lot more disagreement on how much, what my quality of life is, in terms of what we're discussing, as opposed to um, if somebody were like just in general suicidal. Like there's going to be a lot more people that be like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know how much I'd want to live if I didn't have like hands or feet or et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. But I don't think broadly would say um, we'd expect that type of life isn't worth living. I feel like that could go down a little bit to anybody who's like, yeah, no, I don't. I've gone through that and it was bad, but it wasn't like not worth living bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of veterans that have gone through that. But
Yeah, like
I think the suicide rate is pretty high among veterans.
sure. So I guess if we're gonna try and reevaluate this, would we be speaking explicitly to some sort of certainly terminal illness or persistent amount of extreme pain that we don't have any reason to assume will ever be assuaged? So we wouldn't be counting things like this person's going to be paralyzed, completely paralyzed for the rest of their life. We would have to take certain steps to try and uh, put them through whatever therapies are needed to get them to where they could interact with the world. And then maybe that could be revisited later.
Yeah. I mean, if all this stuff's been exhausted for any of these situations and they're still just miserable, I I think they should be, they should be considered.
Well, like in terms of like exhausting the options, like uh, how far do we go there? I mean, especially if we're talking about costs for trying to value these options, often that times this can be incredibly expensive.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So they have to be able to foot the bill to do all these different things, or are we gonna have to have some sort of another like fundamental shift in how, or we have to implement some sort of a universal health care for this to be able to be done properly? Or
yeah, that's a whole other can of worms too.
because if we have the idea of like maybe, yeah, we should put you in front of like a physical therapist, occupational therapist, and they can help you kind of like adjust to having a life without being able to use most of your limbs, and that might be all fine and good if they can pay for it, but if they can't, like maybe they're not a veteran, maybe they're just some random Joe who has crappy or no health insurance, and like, well, you're getting kind of patched up, and I don't know, you're kind of relying on Medicare at that point, um, or Medicaid, one of the two.
Well,
Um,
that's a good point though. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's a whole separate issue because I honestly think that medical treatment should be separate from insurance. You should be able to get medical treatment regardless whether you've got insurance or not. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a totally different issue that needs to be addressed.
well,
Void is back.
welcome
Yes,
back.
Welcome back.
I have
Welcome
a lot
back.
of
Yay.
technical problems today.
Welcome back.
Oh, your video
Uh,
is much smoother now.
yeah, sorry. While I was rebooting, I understood that I was misunderstood by Elusive. I'm not saying that each person needs to wait until statistics is gathered. I'm saying that once statistic is gathered, it can be used for all next patients. So yes, first people are unjust. So first people would need to suffer. That's bad. I agree. But until we have statistics, we don't know what is right and what is wrong, and we don't really have a choice.
Okay, so if we're trying to get a little more specific with this, let's say we're talking about MS. Now we've
Mhm.
been studying MS for a good at least 2-3 decades now, 20-30 years,
Okay.
to varying degrees. Is that like sufficient, or
Do we have like this specific survey on would they prefer to do assisted suicide or not? If not, then no, it's not enough.
well, I think I don't think it'd be. I would assume that this is something that people tend to ask their doctors. I can't say that I know specifically, but um, anytime you get some sort of a diagnosis where end of life care is in the discussion, I feel like this is a topic that's going to get broached. So I feel like that's something that's recorded somewhere.
If we do have this recorded in a good way, so the quality of the statistics is good, it's not biased to somewhere,
Or
then yes, we already can use it.
also, I guess what we'd probably be interested in isn't so much asking 1,000 people, is this the point at which you decide life's not worth living? I feel like the things we're going to be looking for are how painful does life become when you have this ailment? What access to what abilities do you lose when you have this ailment? Because even if we're just asking people like at what point is life not worth living for you, that's going to be incredibly subjective, and I don't know if we can very easily reintegrate that and try and uh, repurpose that for use on somebody else. But if we're using like pain in general, that might be a little more uh, valuable, and that's probably something we absolutely have access to.
Unfortunately, the only person who can say if assisted suicide would be uh, justified or not is somebody who experienced the suffering and then experienced all the things to the end of this life. Only they can say what should have been done. If you try to use your experience to say for somebody else that this person should die or something like that, this is like uh, very easy to make a mistake here.
I sort of like I think you're kind of arguing that hindsight's 2020, and the I would agree that the best person that would be able to make this determination would be somebody who had lived and died from whatever ailment we're discussing. But I don't think it's terribly hard to say this is what the ailment is. If we're talking about MS, this is what we already know what the outlook is. That's how we can give people 6 months to live, a year to live for whatever cancer they might have. We can tell them at certain points whenever it spreads to this organ, or at this point you're going to start having experiencing pain in increasing amounts, and I feel like if we can already do that, I don't know what else we're looking for other than some subjective interpretation from the patient. It seems like that interpretation is the only thing we'd be gaining from this study.
Well, yes, because like in the end of the day, uh, like your judgment about who should live, who shouldn't, also subjective. But you are not the person who have this experience to like have
Right, but
proper.
I'm not supposed to be the person making the decision. If I'm the doctor, I'm not telling this person, hey, your life's not going to be worth living. I'm the doctor. I'm saying this is what you're going to experience. There's going to be pain. It's going to be really bad. There can be a huge problem with trying to relate pain to people because people are notoriously bad at relating pain. Like pain, a 10 on the pain scale might be a 5 to somebody else. But I feel like if we can reliably do relate all of this stuff to even some degree, um, I think that's all we really need to do, because we don't care about the past patient's interpretation. We care about the current patient's interpretation. If they have the information, that's all they need to make the choice for themselves.
They don't have information about what experience that would be until they experience that.
Sure, but even with a survey, they wouldn't have that information anyways. All they would have
With
is this many people chose this.
with survey they won't, but with survey we have information about people in similar context. What experience would do they
Sure,
get?
but I don't think we need that information, do we? We
It
I
feels
don't
we do.
so the decision maker isn't going to be us. We don't make these decisions. Um, if we're a doctor, we're giving this information to the patient. The patient would make the decision. Um, in terms of what information the patient would need, I would assume they would need to know what their outlook is on life, like how long they'd have, what the quality of that life would be, any loss of function, any amount of pain, intensity that can be hard, very, very hard to gauge, um, as I'm sure anybody in the medical profession can back me up on. Um, but what I don't
Yes.
know if it'd be incredibly valuable is what everybody else did in the situation.
No,
I,
and I agree. This is why I said earlier each case should be taken case by case. Each individual should be taken as an individual because they are uniquely different and everybody experiences different pain levels. So each case should be taken as each individual person needs.
I agree
You
here.
know, you
The problem here, I don't know. I cannot talk for you people, but I assume the vast majority of people, at least once in their life, wanted to die for some reason. So if they would granted some easy ticket to do so, um, I think it wouldn't be a good solution.
what I don't know
Uh,
if we're
well,
talking
I've
about easy
taken care
ticket.
of patients with Parkinson's disease, Hutchinson's disease, where they've literally in so much pain that they're not able to say what they want because they are unable to speak because of what those conditions have done to them. I think they should be afforded to say when their luxury of life is not livable anymore. They should be allowed to choose when they die with dignity.
Well,
Yeah,
I
people
agree.
need to have those, those forms, what do you call it? Um,
DNR.
the directive,
the,
the advanced directive.
yeah, yeah, I filled them out before. I think
Yeah,
everybody should at least fill those out at
yeah,
some point.
my nan, well, my other nan who died of cancer, filled out end of life forms.
People
Well,
who
Yeah.
So
well,
I do
then
think
you
people.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, go on.
Okay, then you also have to bring in the issue of faith because, like I said, my sister basically passed away from complications of MS, and I lost my best friend to cancer. Both of them devout Christians. They would never even consider it an option to end their suffering.
uh, just to answer what Sweet Pea said, people who cannot even speak, of course, as I said initially, let's separate people who cannot end their life themselves for some reason, and people who can. So people who cannot even speak, I assume they are not capable to control would they live for further or not. Thus, they need assistance for sure. I agree. Um, but we are talking about people who can end their life by themselves, so they're not in that bad condition. Um,
Yeah,
um,
but we're
uh-huh.
not to know that. We are not to know their quality of life. We're not to know how much pain they're in and why they're choosing to want to end it. This is why it's important that they be evaluated to
Well,
see
and what
if that
about
is exactly
what about the folks that don't have uh, a directive or anything, and they're not able to communicate and say what they want, um, but they're just going to continue to suffer, bedridden for who knows how long. Um,
Yeah, I think this is something that their families would have to talk about with the doctor to see what would be the best thing for them
mhm.
is. And,
Yeah,
you know, it is a very difficult situation.
yeah,
This is a pretty difficult topic. I wish we would have had more people join.
yeah. Because
As
I mean,
for
if somebody can't communicate that to you, how do you know what they want? Um, they maybe they maybe want to not suffer anymore, or maybe they don't
Yeah.
want. Maybe they want to stick around as
Mm.
long as possible.
The lady who I took care of, she had Parkinson's. No, not Parkinson's, Hutchinson's, and she was completely bedridden. And she used to communicate through a series of blinks. We'd ask her what she'd like, and like it's either 2 blinks for yes and 1 for no. You know, so we would have to ask her specific questions on what she wanted, you know.
Did you
But she
say
was all
Huntington?
compass yeah, Huntington's disease. She was completely bedbound. She was not able to talk. She didn't have any, she didn't have the, the muscle control to be able to speak. So she was able to blink. So we would have to ask her specific questions like what she wanted, and then like she'd either blink once for no and 2 for yes, but we would have to be specific in asking her what she would want.
Well, at least you were able to communicate in some way.
Yeah, but she was all
That's
compass
good.
mentis. She was compass mentis. She was, she was completely 100% there. She was well aware of what was going on, except she just couldn't communicate she couldn't
Yeah.
express how she was feeling.
if we return to people who are suffering and we don't know something to make a decision, As I said, we gather statistics, and with time, we will accumulate enough information to handle all of such cases, at least almost all of such cases. And in future, people would stop suffering if, yeah, if we just do what I proposed.
Well, sort of. Like, essentially, we would. My understanding is you'd say we'd go out, we'd gather these 1,000, 2,000 surveys, however many we'd need, and we would be getting we get information on from people, and it sounds like the big thing you're looking for is when do they think it's no longer worth living anymore? Is that accurate?
More like uh, some statistical decision on when it doesn't make sense to fight for their life, something like that.
Um, sure. So you're trying to get like real people that are actually going through it to answer this and be like, okay, so these people in this year are going to answer this, but realistically, this might change over time, right?
Yes, you may do new surveys and results may shift somewhere. It's totally fine.
Well, if we're going to do new surveys, we'd have to pause the policy, right?
There could be volunteers. Yeah, it would be biased
Well,
survey.
yeah, I say any sort of volunteer would be inherently biased because
Yeah.
if they're volunteering for this, they're obviously not that set in their decision.
Well, my point is, if somebody volunteers, they may discover something new about experience which wasn't known before, and that could be a good enough reason
No, that's
uh, to indeed pause acceptance for some sample and remeasure again.
well, so that's true. There somebody might have that realization, but it sounds like in this situation you'd be explicitly filtering for people who are on the fence. Because anybody who's like, nope, I definitely don't want to do that is not going to volunteer. So you're only going to be getting the people that are maybe a little closer to the fence, and everybody who's dead set's going to be like, I'm not going to volunteer for that. I'm just going to do it.
Yes, and the fact it's biased into this direction only helps to the side which wants to reevaluate because okay, it depends. So okay, let me simplify. The point is, if you want to reevaluate, you need some substantial reasons for that. That's it.
What the substantial reasons for that is going to be everybody who goes through this experience is going to have different ideas on it. It's not going to be like it's not going to be that uniform. There's going to be different amounts of pain that someone says this is too much. There's going to be different amounts of loss of bodily autonomy that somebody says this is too much. And I think the idea of taking somebody else's decision and applying that to a future patient is very strange to me because what they might say is um, fine. Somebody else might be like beyond the pale. I can't believe anybody would ever consider going through this.
Mm. Well, how else to do the decision? We only accumulate that information we can and just use to make the decision. Your proposal is just to do not accumulate information and do decision with even less information. I think
Well, no, because my proposal is to say that we have 99% of the information that you were trying to gather. The only thing we didn't factor in is what did those people decide? We know how painful it's going to be. We know the outcomes. We already have all this known. It's known about the disease. We can tell the patient that, and the patient can make their own informed medical decision.
patient cannot do this kind of decision. They have never been through such kind of experience, and whatever you will tell them, they most likely will do decision not about what it actually is. Uh, mm,
I mean, it's probably true, but I feel like we have to have some sort of a level at which we say a person is capable of making their own medical decisions. If we can't say that, I feel like we stop giving patients any autonomy, and we just say, you know what, you don't know what's best for you. I know what's best for you. I'm making this decision for you.
we
And at that
sometimes
point,
do
we've
that.
stopped. Yeah, but if we're gonna say that, why would we give the patients any decision at all? Why wouldn't we just say, well, we've gathered all this information. We don't think your life's worth living. Sorry.
Uh, well, like our we can have very different ethics, but in the end of the day, I guess we share the idea that we want to people live as long as possible, as happy as possible, all that. Of course, it could be very, due to very different ethical basis, but practically speaking, something like that. So if we know that a person can live a happy life, there is no need to make decision for them. Let's end it.
Well, except you kind of mentioned that these people don't really have, and frankly never will have, the ability to make anywhere as near as informative a medical decision as their doctor will. Like you can tell them all you want, but they haven't gone to med school. They don't know what most of that stuff really means.
The- as I said, the only problem with the suicide is that it's irreversible.
Mhm.
This is why we need to do more thinking about that. It is similar to, for example, my English is not that good. How you call people who break the law? I don't know.
Criminal.
Criminals?
Yeah, criminal. How about again, my English is not that good. How you call when you kill a criminal in justice system in
Death
Oh,
penalty.
death penalty.
death penalty? Yeah. So this is like with death penalty. This is a bad thing just by design because it's irreversible. For example, in the end of the day, one might see that that person wasn't guilty; he was falsely accused. Like, and what can we do now when we killed him? Uh, Similar principle works here. No need to kill somebody beforehand just because he was in a temporary state where he asked for. We need to be data driven. We need to collect data and do our decisions blindly on this data. We shouldn't enable our subjective to do these decisions.
What I mean, we are though. We have to. That so, all of these decisions are going to be inherently subjective if you're giving them to the patient. If we're not setting out any sort of like solid guidelines, are these blood pressure, you need this blood pressure, and you need to have this amount of responses in a given period of time. Like if we're not like tailoring them very specifically to health metrics, and we're giving the decision to the patient, it's going to be entirely subjective based on what the patient thinks.
I'd argue that when we gather enough statistics, it became somewhat objective. And so, like, objective in a specific culture, in specific context. Uh, um, Sorry, I hear noise.
I'm not sure who that's coming through.
Okay. I lost my chain of thought. Sorry. Feel free to respond meanwhile.
Yeah. So I think we're both agreeing. Well, we're pretty close here. It's like I think we both want a lot of information on everything in terms of like how things are going to proceed. I'm just, I guess, not really bought in on the idea that um if I were to like pursue end of life decision making, and I was going to say, you know what, how am I going to determine whether or not my life's worth living? I think I would. I don't think I'd ever really look at what percentage of people with similar diseases took this route? Or at the very least, I don't think I'd look that out specifically. I'm sure it'd probably come up, but I think I'd be looking at levels of pain, evaluating how I felt about those levels of pain, evaluating how I felt about having those levels of pain for a given period of time. I don't know if other people's decisions are gonna, at least people I don't know. Like it's all gonna be, it's a very personal decision.
Yeah, for some reason, I thought, what would I do if somebody would torture me? And would I like to end my life or not? And I'm pretty sure that in the moment I would be tortured, I would like to my life to end. But after the torture ends, I would say that that would be a regrettable solution. So no need to end my life while somebody is torturing me. So my decision is based on context I am right now in. Um, and when you ask a patient in the moment when they are experiencing pain, you kind of ask only one side of this patient. You don't ask that side of the patient who might like experience something else, like I don't know. There are different diseases, different. Uh, um, mm, Again, I hear noise. I cannot focus.
I
Sorry.
don't know who's typing right now. That somebody's got a pretty sensitive mic.
Sorry.
Uh, no worries. um, okay. Um, what was I saying? I forgot. It's like 1 a.m. for me. My brain doesn't work.
Oh,
Fair enough.
Yeah, same here. It's
yeah.
nearly like 1:10, but yeah. I think each individual should choose when the right time to end their life is, based on the quality or non-quality of that life that they've got. I think the sole person who only can choose that is the person that is going through it.
Yeah, but I do think I really do think they need to be evaluated, um, and make sure that they're mentally sound.
Really
Yeah.
quick, I guess, because me and him, I think, are kind of we're looping a bit at this point. What are your guys' thoughts on if we're going to try and gather data to give to patients to make these decisions? What are your thoughts on would we need to gather like how previous patients felt, and because in order to
I don't think
complete
it's
this survey, we'd essentially be forcing people to live through the entirety of the
May
disease.
I?
no, I
And
don't.
and
Yeah,
and
I
how,
don't think that is feasible, to be honest. I think each person is an individual and they should be treated as such. And I think individual cases should be treated as such. You can't say what another person is going through based on a survey of what somebody else was going through. I think each person should be compos mentis to decide for themselves when they've had enough and when they choose to end their life with dignity. It shouldn't be based on what somebody else has gone through.
to be an accurate survey, wouldn't they have had to gone through a lot of suffering, and then you ask them, do you think your life would have been, or do you think your situation would have been improved had you been able to take your own life months ago, or whatever?
Like,
Is that the kind of
Yeah, that
survey
just comes
questions
across.
we would be
Yeah, I
asking?
think it's. Yeah, I just think that seems a bit sadistic, to be honest. I'm sorry.
I don't
Why
know.
put
like
somebody through that pain just to collect your statistics when
I can
it
answer.
Go ahead.
uh, because it would be easier to legislate. You cannot just go through something like let's allow assisted suicide without data collected. But when you have, you can do that, and you can end suffering for like the whole country. Uh, but okay, elusive viper. I actually think, yeah, you're right. Let me change my opinion. Um, there is one more exclusion case. If a medical professional can say that this is a permanent state, not a temporary state, like there won't be other stages in this process. I mean, fundamentally different. Then a patient is capable to make a decision by themselves right now. But if there will be fundamentally different stages in this process, then we need more data to make a decision.
So like let's I think that gets us a lot closer together, but let's try and spoil that a little more. So like let's say we have a particularly aggressive form of cancer that we know is going to be fatal, and they've got a year to live. We know in 6 months they're going to go through a really extreme period of pain that'll last for about 3 months, and then they'll have kind of they'll kind of like peter off, and then they might have a month or so at the very end where it's just kind of numb. Would we put them through that like 3 to 5 months of extreme pain to live out the 1 month?
Uh, I think we would need to gather information, yes. But hopefully information will prove that in future people may decide for themselves.
Well, I think the problem here,
Or not, I don't
and
know.
the other people has kind of picked up on this or had brought this up. I think doing this test is going to be very dicey ethics wise. I don't know if this is even something that modern medicine would be willing to do.
Well, well, I don't know how in country where you live, but I assume assisted suicide is not permitted. So it is already dicey what is happening right now. So
True.
you don't make it worse. You just add observations to what is happening right now. That's it. You don't make it worse.
Well, I'd like to welcome, I don't know how to pronounce that, Ryuko to the chat. Hello.
Yes, I just hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to adapt and follow and listen to you so I can follow the conversation.
Okay.
Do you have some thoughts on the topic?
Mm, I want to hear more about the the causes that push a person to be in a spotlight, like what you discuss all this time.
There's certain conditions that
Because I hear so long that if I'm right, okay, if we could allow to people to end their lives if they suffer too much, or am I out of topic?
yeah, there's conditions where somebody's quality of life is going to be very bad um, for the rest of their life. Um, there's
Yes, but
there's
yes,
and they may have they may want to end it, but there's there's a lot of gray area.
yes, but
Whether it should
in what aspect their lives they are suffering in a medical way or in a, like life conditions or both?
Hmm.
Because
What do you mean by life conditions exactly?
like poverty can
Oh,
push
okay.
can push psychology to some limits that can cross the line. Actually, can create criminality, can create psychological problems. A lot. The stress.
That is true.
Yeah, in that situation, I think that the mental health help is going to be extremely important in helping this person decide what they want.
Yes, but medical health is about to for the person to can handle his life as it is without change anything in the core of it. Just to can handle the difficulties as it is. I'm wondering if, as a society, we can do something to change the core of it, that bring a person or a society to that point. Before that, before it cross the line, before it needs medical, or it comes to the point that it will wondering if its life is worth or not, or the suffering. How you can stop the suffering, not the life, not the life. I don't know if you can understand me. My English is not so good.
Sorry, personally, I had to distract for some while. Um, could you repeat for me, please?
I'm talking about precaution. Huh? Is that the right word? Like when you do something to stop something bad before it happens.
Ah, well, I understand that the topic of today's debates is specifically to tackle this ethical dilemma when we cannot help people and they are going through something intolerable. So, would it be ethical to assist them to end their life or not?
Okay.
Yeah, so you cannot help them beforehand, unfortunately.
Mm, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I agree. This is something better to work on.
Okay, okay,
I-
okay.
it it felt like I'm an elusive almost reached a consensus. Uh, what was our last contention? Do you remember?
Oh, I think if we were discussing like if somebody was going to go through a significant amount of pain, but maybe at the very end they'd have a
Yeah,
spot where they'd be able to live a relatively normal life for a week or two, would that be enough?
I think that would be enough to, yes, to kick off the evaluation.
Hmm.
And if evaluation says that the vast majority of them regret for continuing the life, then okay, then the court should easily permit people to end their life. Why not?
Okay. Hmm. Well, I suppose if we're living in a society where, for the most part, this doesn't happen, we don't have access to um, uh, these easy access to assisted suicide. I guess this would mostly just be a matter of trying to collate the data. So I imagine this is going to be a situation where this data is probably already out there. The question is probably going to be, how do we access it without violating HIPAA laws and whatnot? At least in the US.
So you are saying that we already accumulated a lot of research and maybe we can use some indirect analysis of this data to extract what we want without doing a direct evaluation, right?
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I bet you there's probably enough data points to satisfy your number of people that have gone through this, because there have been that many people that have gone through that. I feel like the difficult thing is going to be, we probably don't have access to whatever medical records that data is located in. So I'd
I
wonder if
think,
maybe this is something that, like, a certain government agencies would be able to view without there being any sort of medical privacy issue.
yeah, if it is possible and if there are, again, social scientists who says, yeah, we can trust this data to make these conclusions, then yeah, I agree. Uh, so if so, what do you think about gathering data? I mean,
I
yeah.
I don't know. I'm still not sold on the idea of how many other people made this decision. But I don't know. If we
Okay,
had it
I would.
available already, I don't know that I would say don't give it to people. I don't know if it would be important enough to go out of the way to get that information that it would justify forcing people to go through um, incredibly painful points in their lives and diseases, especially because one thing that I'm also expecting to happen here is, if we're looking at a situation where there's going to be a given disease that is going to be incredibly painful, it's made known to the patient that it's going to be incredibly painful, I feel like they would probably say, you know what, you could absolutely keep me alive, and I could go through a bunch of treatments, and I could keep coming in every day, or whatever, dialysis, chemotherapy, what have you. um, I feel like you're going to start aligning more and more and more with people saying, you know what, um, I don't want you to keep me alive to live a life of pain. And I feel like they're going to make that decision in an imperfect manner to get the result they want. They're just going to have it happen naturally, as opposed to more gracefully, more suddenly.
Sorry for pivoting. I
So
think
for
actually,
example, if somebody's like, you know what, you're gonna the only way we'd be able to treat you is gonna be with chemotherapy, and it's gonna be super painful, and life's gonna suck for a while. They if people are saying, like, their um, projection looking forward is bad, they might just say, you know what, just don't treat me. And I don't know if we'd be able to force people to answer differently. And if we didn't do that, we would be selecting those people out of whatever survey we had.
yeah, I agree.
What about what about if it's a child or a teenager who has cancer or something and they're tired of going through treatment? What would you guys think of that?
I'm generally fine with that decision kind of resting in the hands of the parent or whatever guardian is in charge. Most of the time, I think there's probably certain situations where we can say, you know what, the parent doesn't seem to have the best interest of the child at hand. But I think for the most part, I feel like that's still going to be a decision for the parent to make with the child.
Is it there a way from the doctors that are giving this treatment to know if the suffering is more than the joy of the patient. I mean, this this can be a measurement. If the suffering is more,
Well, if it's a minor who's repeatedly gone through chemotherapy or something, and then there is no way for anybody to know if it's gonna keep, if the cancer is gonna keep coming back, and they just don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to keep going through the treatments. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
It's just such a tough decision to begin with.
I don't know. It sounds very hard for someone to just make a decision like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree though that it should be something that the parents and their child thoroughly discuss.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that as well. I think the parents should thoroughly discuss it with their child and take in consideration what their child wants before anything is done.
I don't think that the parents should be able to say, no, we're not doing any more treatment, and without their child being in agreement as well.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
think to some degree you
because
have to be able to say that
To
because the
what degree?
parents can't
yeah,
necessarily afford the treatment.
To what point you can say that? That's the interesting thing here. How you
well,
know that the the patient he he doesn't enjoy his life at all, but he's only suffering. Who can say that?
Oh,
Is the
he can't.
parents? We? The society? Who?
The individuals who would generally be looking at
Hmm.
in this situation, like be the parents evaluating the choice of the child.
Right.
Because it's many aspects that you can see. I mean, it depends on the situation that the parents can be. I mean, if we the patients suffer an entire system of people around it, how you know they don't make this decision for their to stop their own suffering and not the treatment of the patients?
Hmm. Yeah.
How you judge that?
Yeah, that's why I don't think that the parents should be able to make that decision solely without the input from their child. Like, oh, I'm sorry, but we're not going to do treatment anymore for you. We're just going to we're going to just let this take its course. I think that would be completely wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Because if the child still wants to keep going through the treatments, they should have the opportunity to fight it and try to beat the cancer.
Maybe I feel like there's generally going to be other things that factor in there. Like there's, I feel like most of the time, if we're looking for a scenario where the parents do not want to continue treatment, the child does want to continue treatment. I feel like it's gonna be a really rare situation where it's not
Exactly.
money reasons. and the parents like, we could maybe do this, but like realistically, this is a low chance of success, and we have other kids to think about, and this would be financially detrimental to the family, and there might have to be a hard decision made there. I don't think most of the situations we'd be thinking of here are going to be like the parents just want to do harm to the child.
No.
Maybe there's a
Mm-mm.
situation where you can say, you know what, maybe there's society can kick in for this, and there can be some sort of a access to special funds for that. But
Exactly, because we don't talk about a pet. We talk about a human being.
I don't think anybody wants to leave that in the hands of just one person to make that decision.
Right.
No, I agree with Elusive about his. I don't know.
Yeah, it should be something that's thoroughly talked
So,
about between the family, the patient, the doctors. It should, and not something that is not a decision that would they'd come to quickly.
I agree. It's something that needs to be well decided on all parties. What is best for the patient, what the
Yeah.
patient wants should be, it's not something that should be taken lightly.
and it depends also from what view do you observe the problem. I mean, if you see it from an economical view, if you see it from a human central view, how you how you how our society want to see that problem. Because Elusive before said something like maybe there are parents that they want to just abandon the case because they cannot afford it economically. What's the response to that?
yeah, I feel generally that the answer kind of has to be there. You would need to add in some sort of a societal response to be like, hey, um, if you can't, if you're, it's to the point where you like can't afford these treatments, that's going to fall on society to be able to provide that or not. I I think it's a valid decision if there's parents that are making the tough decision to say, in order to provide for other children, we cannot pay for these incredibly expensive treatments. I don't feel like the I don't know, like hostage is a good term there, but like essentially you're kind of holding everybody else's interests at.
Yes, exactly.
So I feel like the answer for that would have to come from like the government or rest of the society to try and foot the bill there.
Well, we were just about to start wrapping up. I see we have somebody just join. Yagami? Is that how you
Oh,
say your
hello.
name? Yes.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi.
hi, Yagami.
I guess I'm a bit late.
Well, would you
It's
like
okay.
to we can hold off on ending the stream if you would like to give us your thoughts.
Well, uh, ah, well, I don't know much about this today's topic. And I would say it's really bad. Like the rates are pretty high as far as I know, and it's pretty bad.
Well, it's we were more talking about um, the medical assisted suicide, not somebody just taking
Oh,
their life. Yeah.
oh, um, I guess if it's up to the person, but also it should have some medical diagnose to be sure that that person don't have some underlying issue that would cause him to think or be depressed or whatever, which would make him want to suicide with some drug or whatever. But
Hmm.
yeah, I would say it should be up to the person, but I mean, it's really hard. It'll
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
if that person goes like if that person has some type of disease that would cause so much pain that is untreatable and stuff, like if that pain is very very like consistent and stuff, I would say in this type of cases it won't be fine. Like some type of like very painful consistent pain that is go through.
Well, what about if they, if the person's having all this pain, but there is an, and maybe there is an option for something that can be done to alleviate it, but it'll take a couple years. Um,
Um, couple years.
yeah.
Um, I guess I would say it's worth a wait, I guess, but yeah, we have to be in position of that person's position, at how much pain and how long it will take to get treatment or whatever. Then
Hmm.
uh, yeah, I think it should be worth wait. But yeah, it's easy to say from my position.
Well, thank you for your input.
No problem.
I,
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
yeah.
uh,
You're welcome.
yeah, I tried to join, but I was listening.
That's okay.
Well, thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining.
No problem.
Well, is there anything else anybody else would like to say?
I think it's been a productive conversation, and I'd like to thank everybody for joining us.
Yeah, I think we had some decent conversation in there. It looked like we were gonna be a little agreeable there, but we had a little bit of contention. So that was it's nice to have.
Yeah.
I like the thought experiments, with different situations, like the parents and the children, and just, there's so many different scenarios. So I like to, I like to dive into all that.
Same. I think
Well,
it's good.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So I was just gonna say, I think it's good us talking about some controversial issues, because most of them do need to be discussed. But
Yes.
I'll hand it back over to you now, Sparrow.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining. Uh, we appreciate you all being here on Let's Talk. And that is one of the shows that we're doing on the Let's Debate channel. So we'll be having more of these talks, and you're welcome to suggest topics. We do have a place in Discord for you to suggest. We do polls, so you can suggest topics, or you can just shoot a comment into the chat, and yeah, we'd love to hear from you on what you want to talk about. So thank you all very much,
Yes, thank you.
and
Been
have a good night.
enjoyable.
Yeah. Thanks for hosting.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. Bye.
Good
Yeah.
night.
Good
Thank
night.
you for being an amazing host.